Good morning, I'm Jack Thurston. Since the 4th of July is this week, we have a special Independence Day episode of NBC5 In Depth. We're starting with a look at the symbol of our country, the bald eagle. Not all that long ago, there were no breeding pairs in Vermont, but the numbers have really blossomed over the past 15 or so years. Audubon, Vermont says volunteers monitored more than 40 occupied eagle nests last year, with at least 46 young fledged from those nests.
We now have a really robust population.
Biologist Margaret Fowle of Audubon, Vermont is one of the scientists who worked most closely on restoring a healthy population of bald eagles in the state, and says she still gets a thrill when she sees one in flight.
You know, I remember the days when it was so rare to see one, and now it's not as rare, but it's still a pretty impressive bird to see flying around in Vermont, and I definitely get excited when I see them.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
The bald eagle is a conservation success story for Vermont. The species had long struggled across our region and elsewhere because of habitat loss and from widespread use of the pesticide DDT, which would linger in the environment and weaken eagles' eggs.
They raised the flag. They're the ones who told us that something was wrong. They and other species like peregrine falcon and even some of the other predatory birds that we don't even think of as having declined so dramatically, like even the double-crested cormorant declined dramatically because of DDT. So birds at the top of the food chain tend to give us a signal if things are healthy or not.
DDT was discontinued in the U.S. in the 1970s. Vermont was the last state in the lower 48 to have a breeding pair of bald eagles, the national bird of the United States. But that changed after a multi-year reintroduction push, which included releasing young eagles raised by biologists.
We're seeing this pretty quick recovery of a species in the state. We're seeing new nests every year. We want to keep the number of young produced each year to be one per nest or more, and our average is over that. It's closer to 1.5 to 2.
Eventually, in 2022, the population had rebounded enough that bald eagles were removed from Vermont's endangered species list. They had already been delisted federally, with many protections like the criminalization of hunting eagles remaining in effect. Today, the birds that like to eat fish are well distributed along the Connecticut River, other major rivers, and along the shores of Lake Champlain. Roz Renfrew with the Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife says Vermonters should be proud of how eagle numbers have soared.
Yes, and it's actually something that Vermonters should really own responsibility for, because this has been a group effort, a team effort. It's been multiple organizations in partnership. It's been the result of a lot of volunteer help, and we really couldn't do it without the partnership, the teamwork, and the volunteers who have all contributed in one way or another, and they continue to contribute. We have exceeded our goals for the recovery of the species. I think people care about them, they recognize them and notice them and value them. And I think that brings people into understanding and recognizing the entire ecosystem that this species relies on. And eagles tend to be sort of at the apex of that pyramid. It's almost like a food pyramid, right? The apex of this ecosystem pyramid. Underneath what is supporting those populations is a whole ecosystem made up of a lot of other species. And the eagles are an important part of that. They are sort of an apex predator. They're also a scavenger, so they're essentially an ecosystem cleaner of sorts. And so they have their role to play in our ecosystem, just like all the other species. So whenever we're looking to conserve species, it's with that species in mind, but also because that species plays a role in a functioning ecosystem. And if you start pulling out one role after another, you end up with a Broadway production with one actor in it, and that's kind of boring.
Scientists have questions still about Vermont's bald eagles, like how their comeback may impact other species, including the great blue heron. Reports from the northwestern part of the state have indicated herons may be getting scared away from familiar nesting sites by eagles.
If we give everybody, all these birds, enough space, my guess is that it's natural for the, eagles to move in and the herons or other species to shift their location, and there's kind of a push-pull in a natural way. But if we don't give them enough space, then maybe there's nowhere for those herons to go. So we really have to think holistically when we do conservation work about making sure that there's room for all species.
Challenges do remain for bald eagles. Because they often scavenge food, they can become roadkill themselves. And in 2022, bird flu killed roughly 10 eagles in Vermont, Renfrew says.
They're pumping out the chicks every year that are there to potentially replace the adults that die. It takes them 4 or 5 years to get to the point where they're mature enough to breed. But as long as you have that productivity that's constantly pumping more into the population, they can be resilient against things like that.
We asked for recommendations on how we can help bald eagles.
The biggest threat for eagles, at least at this time of year, is human disturbance. So just giving them the space they need to raise their young. So if you're on your kayak and you come upon an eagle nest or something like that, just making sure you don't go so close that you get a negative reaction from the birds.
Some easy things if you fish or hunt is to avoid using lead. Lead tackle that's less than a ½ ounce has been banned in Vermont, but you can still use lead that's larger than that. There's also a lot of old lead sinkers lying around or in people's tackle boxes. We encourage people to safely dispose of that. Lead ammunition, there are better and better alternatives every day for lead ammunition. So just like school kids in their school with lead paint, it's just not a good idea to have lead in our environment either and expose our wildlife to it. Eagles have been a victim to that. And so that's a really pretty simple thing to do. Other than that, you can volunteer. There's a lot of wildlife monitoring, including for eagles. If they happen to be in your area, you happen to have a car and have some time, you can donate to wildlife efforts like the non-game tax checkoff. You can donate to one of our partner organizations that work on these species, Vermont Center for Eco Studies, Audubon, Vermont. They're all doing all of this work to monitor and protect these species all year long, and they can always use the financial assistance if that's something people are able to do. On top of that, there's sort of a bigger picture with just protecting the larger ecosystem. Vermont is really special. I think we all know that. I think that's why we're here. It has a lot of natural resources. It has a lot of wildlife. It's really important to continue to conserve that and to do really strategic land use planning that has that in mind while also serving the obvious human needs that we have these days that are real problems that we need to address at the same time. So we need to do that in a really thoughtful way.
Oh, it's just gorgeous.
And the reason that's important in Vermont is because even though we might look around and say, oh, we have a lot of forest, we're fine. Vermont actually serves as a sort of connector for wildlife and plants across our region. So between New York and Maine and Canada, our forests actually provide connectivity between those other areas. And that's really important for wildlife that don't pay attention to state boundaries. And it's really important amidst climate change because we need to allow species to move across the landscape as our landscape changes, because that is inevitable. So this way species can adapt and move around as they need to and readjust to our new climate. Another really easy thing to do is if you see wildlife that looks sick or injured, or even something like a bald eagle dead on the highway, which did happen. I mean, we had 5 reports of those last year. Please do report it to Fish and Wildlife so that we can assess whether or not it's worth going to pick it up and collect it and send it to the lab, or whether it's still living and has a chance of surviving and can go to a rehabber.
Support for a species wildlife experts say often inspires awe in people who see bald eagles in flight, now more often than in generations.
When I first started working as a biologist in Vermont, I was the loon biologist for a little bit, way back, and nobody talked about bald eagle sightings. And if someone did see one, it was such a big deal. And everyone called me, they would call me right away and explain, and we've got to mark that location and document that. And now I don't get those calls at all because I think it's become more of the norm. Like, oh, there's a bald eagle. And I think people still really appreciate it. but in a different way where it's like, yeah, that's part of our system now. That's part of what we have here. It's not this extra special thing that we never get to see. It's just part of what we get to see. And I think that's a really neat transition that I've seen over the years.
Vermonters get really excited about bald eagles, and so just hang on to that excitement and do whatever you can to make sure we have bald eagles well into the future.
As you heard, bald eagle monitoring is largely done by volunteers. If you'd like to get involved, contact Audubon Vermont.